Hello everybody, my name is Patricia. I'm a first-generation Beatles fan. This channel is called The Little Beatles Corner. Before I start today's video, I would like to just stop for a moment and thank everybody who has passed by this channel in any way or shape or fashion or form. Whether you come every now and then or you've only been here once and hated it, or whether you're subscribing, I really appreciate everybody's interest in what I try to do, and I've made some good friends, and that's the best part of the whole thing. So you're all very valuable to me, so I really do thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. So today is not going to be Beatles per se, but it's going to be a Beatles related video. I want to talk today about Billy J. Kramer with the Dakotas, who was part of the Mersey beat scene. And the reason I decided to do this was, I have a big fascination with Mersey beat music and all the groups that came out of that at that time and who were kind of in competition with the Beatles and who came out more popular on top and had more talent or not or whatever. And it's a really interesting genre, and it's something that Beatle people really should look into, I would say, because that's part of the roots, aside from Hamburg, where the Beatles come from. So now, as far as Mersey beat itself goes, it was considered to be a genre that originated only in Liverpool. And they say that the Mersey beat era started around 1961, and they say it ended about 1965. Now, there were three periods that have been identified, in terms of this Mersey beat era. The first was what they call the Big Boom, which was 1961 to 62, where all the Liverpool groups were starting to form and play and come up and then play at the Cavern and different other venues that were strictly around Liverpool area. Then in 1963, it widened into more, the UK became aware of Mersey music, and so it became more popular throughout the United Kingdom. And then the third and final, era of this whole thing is 1963 to 1964, which is when it kind of petered out in 1960 and 63 and in 64 because other bands throughout the United Kingdom were coming up, whether it be the Stones or Freddie and the Dreamers or Herman's Hermits, or, there's a million of them. So that became then the British Invasion. So there weren't a whole lot of Mersey beat groups that actually transitioned into what you would call the British Invasion, which invaded America. But there were several that were pretty prevalent, and that's one reason I wanted to talk about Billy J. Kramer with the Dakotas today. Now, Brian Epstein did manage Billy J. Kramer with the Dakotas, and he managed a couple other groups, which I'm calling the Big Four. Now, I was going to call them the Fab Four, but, we can't do that. That would be terrible. So I'm calling these people the Big Four. So it was Billy J., who I'm going to talk about today, Jerry and the Pacemakers, Cilla Black, and then the Searchers, who were not managed by Brian. So 3 out of 4 from Brian was pretty good. Now there's other groups that had a couple of hits, whether it be the Swinging Blue Jeans or the Undertakers or whoever, that minimally crossed over, but not to any great extent where, they were able to continue with a career and longevity like these groups did, these Big Four, I'm saying. So now, as far as Mersey beat itself, it was coined by this guy by the name of Bill Harry. Now, he was an art student, and he was at the Liverpool Institute of Art at the same time John Lennon and Stuart Sutcliffe were, and he was actually friends with both of them. So he says that he's the one who introduced Stuart to John, or John to Stuart, whichever way it went. And it wasn't like anything where I always thought that Stuart and John kind of bumped into each other because they were students, at the same time. But Bill Harry claims his fame to introducing them, and of course Stuart became, good friends with John, best friends at the time with John. So Anyway, so that's that part of it, but also Bill Harry's an interesting figure in this whole thing. And actually, I think the Fest for Beatle fans should try to get him to come over here, because that guy's a wealth of information and he still is alive. He wanted to start a newspaper that would highlight all of the Liverpool musical goings-ons, because it got to be so popular, and so he named it Mersey Beat. So the Mersey part of it was because they all lived on the Mersey side, you know, the river and all that, the Mersey River, but the beat part was not about rock and roll beat, but he came up with the beat part because he saw all the policemen who at that time were all walking around and had walking beats, and he wanted his newspaper to be part, you know, all over Liverpool, like the policemen were on their beats. So that's how it became Mersey Beat. Now, his first issue was in July of 1961, I believe, and it went until 1966 when it folded. So it came out every 2 weeks, and it highlighted all, you know, where you could find groups and where they were playing, and advertisements for clothes and musical instruments, and who was on top, and photographs and all kinds of stuff. So it's a pretty, it was a pretty historical newspaper, I would say. So I do have 4 of them. They're all terrible and beat up, but I'm going to show you a little bit of them just so you have an idea. Now this one these are all from 1964, so if you get them earlier, or if you get one with the Beatles on the cover, it's way more expensive than what these were when I bought them, and I bought them a long time ago, but they're kind of not, some of them are hard to find, but they're really expensive when they're the you know, the older ones. So these are all 1964. So this one has Searchers on it, one of the big 4. And I'll just open up one page so you can see it's got all kinds of pictures and information and stuff on there. Actually, in the front of this, there's a cavern advertisement on the bottom. Now this one is Billy Fury, and this is from August of '64. Then I have the Swinging Blue Jeans on this one, which is May of '64. And actually, here's a kind of a neat thing on the back of this one. There's a guitar sale, so all you guitarists out there might get a kick out of that. And then there's a place where I guess you could buy kind of like Beatle booths in the front on the bottom. And it said they had over 250,000 readers every issue, so that was pretty popular. And then this one is September of '64, September 17th, and this is the Undertakers. And what's interesting about this is there is an article about Brian on the back. And actually, he became kind of like a part owner of Mersey Beat around this time, and they announced that. So Brian apparently had some bigger collaboration, at least at that point. So that's pretty interesting. Now there's a Frank Hesse music advertisement there, which is interesting. And then this magazine also, or I should keep saying magazine, but it's really newspaper. They advertised where you could call up different groups, I guess, if you wanted to get in touch with them. So there's one that see on the bottom, it says the Peep S4, among other groups, but I thought that was pretty interesting. So these are pretty historical in terms of what went on at the time, so I thought you might enjoy seeing that. Now, I also have 2 other, I have some 2 CDs that I like a lot that have more unusual tracks from different groups on them. So this one was made in France. I've had these both for a long time. So there's a lot of groups I never heard of before. A lot of groups are on here. You know, the Undertakers, the Chants, the Searchers, Johnny Sarandon, the Raymer Four, on and on. And then this one is very good. It's got different artists on there, like Farron's Flamingos and some other unusual people that have some really good music. So these might be something you might want to look for if you want to delve into Mersey Beat. Maybe you could find them on eBay. Of course, they're all out of print. So that's Mersey Beat, kind of in a nutshell. Now, I wanted to just talk about Billy J. Kramer with the Dakotas, and of course Brian found him and, you know, signed him up. And he was singing with other people before when Brian found him, but those other people didn't want to continue with music. So Brian teamed him up with 3 other guys that they call the Dakotas. And Billy J. Kramer, that's not his real name, it's really William Ashton, but you know, they changed it to Billy J. Kramer for a, you know, for a stage name. And I believe that John Lennon was the one who thought that the J in the middle was like, you know, the way to go. So I think he gets a little credit for that. Now, he had albums, EPs, and singles. So I'm going to show you the albums that I have. And actually, I didn't do too bad considering. As far as discography goes. So this is the first one. It's called Listen by Billy J. Kramer. And this was his first album that came out in 1963 on the Parlophone label. In the United Kingdom, it charted at number 11. Now already I'm in a quandary about this whole thing because I don't have this record on a Parlophone label, but I have it on another label and it says made in England. So UK people who know all about this stuff, I hope you help me out. It's called BGO Records. Mono. So why this is not on Parlophone, it's on something else, I don't know. That's not the original pressing, I guess, but I would like to know about BGO Records if that's possible. And I did buy it a long time ago. I've got a sticker on there from the HMV record store, and that was on Oxford Street, and that was early 80s. And I actually paid £7 and whatever for it, which might have been expensive at the time, I don't know. But anyway, that was his first record. Now the second record is called Little Children. Now this came out in May of 1964, which was, you know, 7 months later. Now this came out on the Imperial label, and it was a United States only release. And this record charted number 48 in the United States. So from what I can see, there's no equivalent of this as far as United Kingdom pressing, which I found awful weird. So anyway, he did sign it at the Fest for Beatles fans for me. And then I have a slick on the other side that I just stuck in there that has his signature too. But there's the back of it. I hope you can see that well enough. Now here's the record on Imperial. All these records I'm showing you are in mint condition. There it is. And there it is. I hope it's not upside down. I always do them upside down for some reason. So that's his second album, but I think first in the United States, you know. So the whole thing is kind of strange to me why there's not a UK counterpart to that. Now the third album is going to be called I'll Keep You Satisfied, From a Window. And this was released in August of '64, which is a couple, 3-4 months later. And again, this was only released in the United States. And this record did not chart in the United States charts at all. So, you know, looking for his United Kingdom discography, actually I only see the first album as a discography, and the rest of his stuff was EPs and singles, which I found really strange. Here's the inner sleeve for this record, which advertises mostly like Ricky Nelson and Sandy Nelson and Slim Whitman and who else? Fast Domino. And I'll show you the I'll show you the back of the outer sleeve. I just have a little piece of paper there, but it's there's nothing wrong with it. So that's the back. That's the front, and I got this one signed too. Now, of course, Billy J doesn't have the same voice that he had way back when, but he can still carry a tune, and he comes to the fest quite often, so I've been able to see him, you know, over the years, kind of consistently, so it's kind of been nice. So that's that one. And now, then there's a fourth one called Trains and Boats and Planes, which I do not have. And that was released in August of 1965. It didn't chart anywhere. And again, that was only a United States release and on the Imperial label. And there's no UK counterpart to that either. So it's pretty weird. So that was kind of the end of them. I think they disbanded in 1966. So between then, say 1966 when they disbanded, all the way up until 1986, so you're talking 20 years, Billy J didn't seem to put out anything musically, and so then he appeared on the scene 20 years later with an album called Kramer versus Kramer, which I don't have. I'm going to look for it though. That did not chart, and you know, it was his first solo release, but he did do a lot of recordings of some earlier songs, or probably hits that he did, maybe almost a compilation, I don't know. And that was on a label called Attack, A-T-T-A-C-K label. So anyway, so that is that. Now, he did have a lot of compilations come out, and I think that's where most of the UK stuff is. There's a total of 12 compilation albums, and this is one of the 12. Now, I did not date this, so I didn't do my homework to tell you what date this record is, but it's actually on the Parlophone label, so I'm happy about that. I'll show you the back of it first before I show you the record. It just came with a plain white kind of poly thing, and then that's the back. So that's one of the compilations that did come out. Now, here it is on, this is going to be side 2 first. It's a little dusty, sorry. And then the other side. So that's one of the 12 compilations. Now, I did put out a bunch of EPs. I have to put this record away before I continue. Okay, so he did put out a bunch of EPs after they, you know, during their time together as the Dakotas. He put out 5 EPs in the United Kingdom. And the first one was released in October 1963 and was called Billy J. Kramer's Hits. And it charted in the UK at number 8, which was pretty good. And then after that, you know, aside from the EPs, they had a bunch of singles. So the Dakotas had 14 singles. 7 of them charted in the UK. 5 of them charted in the US. And then he had 22 singles that were solo singles. So he's had a pretty good single career, you know, when he got going again, which I will tell you about in a second. Three of those, three made it in the UK charts of his singles, and they were all in 2024. But he did not have any charting in the United States. So after that first solo album, which was in 1986, we did not see him again until 2014. So then he comes out with this CD called I Won the Fight. And he released this on his own, and it didn't chart anywhere. He did sign it there on the side in the gold. And then after that, so this was 2014. Now we're talking 10 years after that, or well, we're going to took 8 years after that, or 9 years after that. He came out with a single. Wasn't really a single, but well, the main one is a single called "The Best Part of Me Is You." And he dedicated this to his wife, Ronnie, who passed away suddenly, I guess in around late 2021 or into 2022. I didn't look it up. Suddenly from a heart attack. So his wife suddenly died. And so then he put this out. And so also on here, he sings Jealous Guy by John Lennon. Hold Me, another song, and To Liverpool with Love, which he wrote. So that's the CD. And upside down and right side up, here you go. That's the other part of it. So that's about 2020, probably 2023, I would say, that this came out. So that was mainly for his wife. And now he came out with something in 2024, June 2024, and it's on the Bootle music label, Bootle, called Are You With Me? And this did not chart anywhere either. Now there's a song on here called My Sweet Rose. So now this is a song dedicated to his new love in his life. I don't know whether he's married now or not, but after his first wife passed away, then he apparently found a new relationship. So that song on this CD is about her. And he also has Jealous Guy on here too. And so this folds out. So the last thing he's done was about 3 months ago. He did a Christmas song, and I forget what it was called. Some Christmas kind of feeling. I have not heard that, but apparently that's something you can listen to if you stream music. I don't know if it's a CD or anything. Now I do have 2 CDs of his that are basically the same. This is called The Best, the EMI Years. And then this one was the Imperial catalog. I think I like this one a little bit better. It's got a couple more songs on it. Now I do have 2 singles of his. Yeah, they're both American singles. So this is on the Imperial, which is what he was on in the United States. And it's a perfectly mint copy except for the hole in the label part. That's From a Window. And then I'll Be on My Way. which was Lennon and McCartney. You know, these people, these three of the four, big four, you know, they did, you know, tag on the coats of Lennon and McCartney because they gave all these artists some songs in some way, whether it's more or less or whatever. And I often wonder what would have happened to these people if they weren't boosted by Lennon and McCartney supporting them with their songs, because none of these people wrote their own songs at that time. And of course, that's one thing that set the Beatles apart from all these other groups. But, you know, they got a lot of help from Lennon and McCartney, so that's what made them more famous, aside from working with Brian, than, you know, the other groups that didn't make it. Now, this is the last, second or last one I have, and the label's all messed up because somebody wrote England something on there. It's Do You Want to Know a Secret? Now, this is on the Liberty label, and I found out that the Liberty label is associated like a subgroup of the Imperial label, so it's all the same company. So those are the two singles that I have. Now, I have two other little things to show you before we end for today. Hang on for a minute. Put that records back. So the first thing I'm going to show you is something I bought maybe 15 years ago. I don't know. This is an early autograph of Billy J. Kramer on a little old piece of paper, probably like an autograph book with "Love, Billy J. Kramer." In the back has something written on it. I don't know. Whoever owned it wrote that. And then I have, this is dated November 23, 1963. So this is, you know, old when they were starting out. These are the other three signatures of the Dakotas. Now, I bought this about probably 15 years ago. I don't know. So I bought it from Trax, and everybody who collects know who they are. And so at the time, I actually paid 35.55 pounds for these autographs. And, you know, the reason I wanted them because the Dakotas autographs are pretty darn hard to get. So that's that. Now, I do have a lot of other Mersey bead autographs and stuff that I've never done anything with, including the ones I just showed you. So maybe at some point I'll show you some of the other stuff I have related to Mersey bead, because as I say, I'm such a big Mersey bead fan. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is a handbill. And this is, you know, from a performance that they were going to do in Great Britain. Now, I did go online to look up the date of this. It is September 5th, but it is 1965. So it's kind of toward more of the end of their career, I would say. So that's my Billy J. Kramer with the Dakotas story for today. I hope it was interesting enough to watch all the way through, and I thank you for watching. And of course, long live the Beatles.